The last time we played Pim and Toothy on this channel, we got kinda out of line, so I'm hoping for a repeat. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and today we've got a really sweet Simic Aggro list coming from Skylar. Now, this is built around Jackal Genius Geneticist, or its fake online name is Drunith Reviver of the Hive. This is an interesting card. Whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value equal to Drunith's power, copy that spell, except the copy isn't legendary. And then you put a +1/+1 counter on this card. So, getting additional copies of things like Scythecat Cub is kind of interesting, right? And you can use Scythecat Cub's +1/+1 counter to manipulate this thing's power so that you are copying the correct thing. So we could do something like turn 2 cast this, turn 3 play a Scythecat Cub, put a counter on this, turn 4 play a second Scythecat Cub, copy it, fetch land, go wild on that first copy of Scythecat Cub. Now, there is going to be some amount of jumping through hoops to make this work, but getting free copies of creature spells is kind of crazy. It might be slightly less good with some of the ones that are legendary, but we aren't running all that many legendary creatures. In this deck, we do have a handful of X cost creatures so that we can very specifically manipulate their cost to get extra copies of them. And while getting extra copies of a legendary creature might not be overly exciting, there is an ETB trigger on this, so maybe it's not the end of the world. We'll see how that actually ends up playing out. Now, the other cute thing in this deck is PIR and Toothy, and both of these tutor for each other when they enter play due to the partner mechanic. The Toothy is whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on Toothy. When Toothy leaves the battlefield, draw a card for each +1/+1 counter on it. So given that we are a one-ring deck and can draw a lot of cards, this can be a way to both create a large threat and have a backup draw plan for if something goes wrong with the one ring. And then PIR is whenever you would put a counter on something, you get one more counter. So your one rings and your toothies go wild very, very quickly. And because this is +1/+1 counter synergy, and most of the things in this deck are involving +1/+1 counters, this might end up being pretty cool. When I look at this deck list, my biggest concern is the lack of removal here. We'll see if what we are doing is just so powerful that we don't need to remove things. But this is a Simic deck, right? So our removal options are very limited. You could play some of the enchantments that remove things, you could play some dismembers, and there's just not any of that in Skylar's list. So we'll see how we end up feeling about that, whether or not that feels like a mistake, or whether it's fine to just go all in on the theme. The last time I played a PIR and Toothy deck, we had, and that's a great video, by the way. That one is worth looking up, even if it's an old format. We had 4 Swords to Plowshares and 4 Leyline Bindings as removal. So when we drew all of this card, we were drawing into removal. And this deck is more, I am going to get you dead before I need removal. And we'll see whether or not that actually ends up being true. Folks, if you need any cards for this or any other legacy deck, or heck, even a standard deck, please consider checking out my sponsor, TOAMagic.com. At any given time, they have something like 95% of standard legal cards in stock, and you know they're always going to have great deals on things like dual lands. Use my promo code ThrabenU to save yourself a little bit when you place an order and support my content. Alrighty, let's battle. Alright, I have what I would call an unexciting opening hand here. I have a couple mana sources, I have a couple creatures, I've got a counter spell. This is fine. Oh? 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 Meticulous Archive and Field of the Dead at the same time is a little wild. What is my basic land situation like? 2 island, 1 forest. Okay. I'm going to start on the basic. I don't know exactly what to expect over there. I don't think I'm into that stuff. Although this is basic forest. Maybe basic forest matters enough that I just take that. So I need to find a way to increase this thing's power to copy Badgermole Cubs. I might just brainstorm this turn and try to make a long-term plan. All Badgermole Cubs. Alright, land drop goes back. One Badgermole Cub goes back. And I will probably just brainstorm for raw mana efficiency on my opponent's end step. So we're in Bant colors. Probably like some Uro style nonsense over there. If I were to guess, I'll brainstorm again. Now it's just awkward that I have like gotten basics in expectation of Field of the Dead being important because I can't do this and this in the same turn. I also can't wasteland and play a reasonable spell. Very, very awkward. All right. I think I should probably take my opponent off the white mana before committing creatures to the board. My opponent hasn't started up with something like Life from the Loam. I think I'm just going to accept this awkwardness. We're settling in for probably a 12-ish turn game anyway. Not playing a creature on a turn is not the end of the world. I'm so tempted to snap off a Force of Will here. Opponent does not have anything going on. I think their hand is very bad. I'm gonna force and give up the Brazen Borrower. Alright, opponent still does have lands. There is a Riddler. Alright. Is this Field of the Dead just a singleton for, like, I fucked up and the game went really long? Alright. So, fetch. Get the basic. Play Badgermole Cub. Earthbend the island, which lets me play Jackal immediately. And next turn I can play both of these and copy them, which is kind of cool. See what my opponent's got. This is presumably going to be another white source. Alright, I'm losing a Badgermole Cub. So in terms of order of operations here, there's Noble Hierarch first, which gets copied. So I get 2 Hierarchs. I think I'll just attack with 1 creature this turn. I'll play Hedge Maze here. Mockingbird is a thing that I can copy next turn. I guess I'll keep it. Oh, fuck. You don't tap for green anymore. Aww. Means I'm not copying my Badgermole Cub. Still getting used to Earthbending. Still crashing in for 4. The Exalted means I could do some weird things with copying creatures as well. That's another way to get this to 2 to start doing Badgermole Cub. Keep that in mind for the future. It's another Quantum Riddler from my opponent on their turn. End of turn. Oh, it is going away. Ah, the swords. My mistake last turn of not playing this tropical island is realized. So here's a Badgermole Cub. I'll Earthbend a land. This is a big-ass Mockingbird. Each one of these taps for bonus mana. So X equals 8. I will make it a Cub. I will Earthbend yet another land and pass. This is where like finding something like a 1 ring that I can funnel this just obscene amount of mana into would be real good. I am still kicking myself for the land drop mistake though. Would be going harder. Yet another Badgermole Cub. All right, so if I just attack in, I've got 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, wait, I misremembered Mockingbird. That doesn't get +1/+1 counters. I think I'm gonna just send everybody into party. I don't really care if you flash in Aphelia and block a land. It comes back anyway. Yeah, this is fine. I'm still dealing an okay amount of damage. And then do another Badgermole Cub. Boy, I just need something to funnel this mana into. This is where, like, one Shitong would draw a billion, right? So each one of these stacks together. So my mana dorks are 4 each. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 22. One Shitong would be an okay draw right now. This is just a 2/2. I will trade a Cub for it so that my opponent doesn't keep doing crimes with it. Okay, there's the Uro that I was expecting from earlier. I really need a good draw for my turn. My opponent has a Quantum Riddler coming back and an Uro coming. Oh my god. I don't ask for much, but if my opponent could not have it, That would be fucking sick. I think I'm going to leave myself with a little bit of floating mana. This is draw 5. Oh, please resolve. Damn it. That is upsetting. Hyped it up. I built up the moment and everything. I can attack with this as 4. That's not going to do it. Oh, that's a shame. Maybe if at the beginning of the game I don't fetch Field of the Dead. Sorry, I don't fetch the basic lands 3 turns in a row. I come out of the gates a little faster. I could have done everything that I'm doing 1 to 2 turns faster than I did. But anticipating some weird lands deck, I did not. And it's not some weird lands deck. This is just Bant control that probably has a singleton Field of the Dead. Alright, there's Brainstorm. I think this is a game that is probably over in favor of my opponent. Like, if my opponent has a Force of Will to back up what they are doing right now, they probably just win. I think it takes me a very long time to lose this game. I will play this. I'll play it because I can block with Hedge Maze and start putting +1/+1 counters on things via landfall. Just sort of a cute interaction. I don't think I'm going to attack into the creatures here. My opponent has so many resources. Yeah, this is bad. I don't know that I get to concede because my own deck is so absurd. Alright. Burrow, trigger. That's no lands, so every card over there is business. Alright, so trigger, Scythecat Cub. I don't want my opponent to remove the Scythecat Cub, but it's the thing that has trample. I think I am putting it on Scythecat Cub. Yeah, I will say no to the land drop. Alright, Brainstorm. That's a Force of Negation. I'll play this out for a turn or two, but I suspect that this game is over. It's just sort of one of those miserable moments where it doesn't really make sense to concede because some of my top decks are so absurd, but any one of these permanents would be bad news. 4 of them is silly. Alright, that's another Quantum Riddler, which is worth so many cards. Ugh, back to 7 in hand, and I'm top decking. I think I'm gonna value my time. I think my opponent's got this one. GG. Alright, let's play a couple of Endurance here. I now know that I don't need to respect Wasteland, which is very important for just staying aggressive in the early game. Do I want Force of Will? I don't really want a 2-for-1 myself. I don't know that my deck is just aggressive enough to win outright without Force of Will. And I don't have removal for my opponent's creatures outside of bouncing them with something like Brazen Borrower. Force of Will might just be a necessity. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do this. This is unexciting, but fine. I'm gonna, I guess, save the fetch land for later. But my next turn is much more awkward if I don't fetch Tropical Island here. So if Noble Hierarch gets removed, I can't ponder and then fetch by playing Forest here. Alright. So even if PIR is not overly exciting, PIR does just cantrip, assuming it resolves. Alright, cool. And if you haven't experienced this before, PIR tutors for Toothy, Toothy then tutors for PIR. So removal spells aren't necessarily the best against them. And Toothy is a leaves the battlefield, not a dies trigger, which is very important for exile-based removal matchups. Opponent surveils and keeps on top. See what they've got. Prefer to play Toothy when I can get immediate value out of Toothy. Might end up like Osageoing the up the beanstalk and not letting my opponent get more value out of that. Ooh, shit. Kind of weird tension there. Send in for 2. 16. Oh, right. This is 1 cheaper because this is a legendary creature. There's the Xander's Lounge. Might end up wastelanding that. Don't want to draw the other PIR. Scythecat Cub is fine. So this is get rid of the removal color or get rid of the thing that makes Leyline Binding significantly cheaper. I think I'm going to attack efficiency here and call that a turn. Scythecat Cub plus PIR is sweet. I can even potentially just stack the counters up on the Noble Hierarch so that I stretch my opponent's removal thinner than it already might be. No, tap the Caracas, please. Okay, I mean, that is pretty legitimately annoying. Alright, I can attack and kill that Teferi. So I guess I will just do so. Yeah, it's gone. Then I'm gonna Scythecat Cub. Opponent says no. I always want to fetch. I think I'm going to play out the Hierarch. With Caracas around, I might need 10 mana to, like, keep replaying these things. Ooh, my opponent's tapping Caracas. That's great for me. Life from the Loam is pretty annoying. Ender's Lounge comes back. Alright. Alright, how does this read again? With mana value equal to its power. We're just a 1-1 here. There's Toothy. Toothy can tutor me up a PIR. There's PIR to hand. Then I'll fetch. Life from the Loam is a thing that can end up dredging up a wasteland. So even if I don't think my opponent is playing many, I probably do want to get that last basic. My problem here is legend, legend, legend. Alright, 1 legend down. Alright, so this goes out of play. I do get to draw a card. This is my slow card advantage engine. Oh wait, no. It's for each +1/+1 counter, not for power. Fuck. This sucks. I feel like I just lose to Caracas. Like, my opponent hasn't done anything yet, but my entire deck is built around legends. So we are now on Operation Attack with Noble Hierarch until my opponent dies. Alright, it's resolved. Tutors me another Toothy. There's a Hierarch. Seems like my opponent has a Swords and they're just waiting. I don't even know if you get rid of the PIR. You might just get rid of the Noble Hierarch that's attacking. Yeah. How many Wastelands are in my deck? Alright, I have 2 more. Sure. Wasteland doesn't really matter here. I guess that's not true, right? I'm trying to replay these legends repeatedly. My spirit is broken. I have felt like it is just more or less correct to concede games very quickly against this deck. This is also a legend. I'm just going to try to do this now in the hopes of continuing to hit land drops, maybe find Wasteland while Caracas is tapped. Alright, resolves. This is some bullshit. This is some bullshit. There is room in between the time that, like, the counters are put on and the trigger so that I don't get my cards. Or rather, I only get 1. Or were those counters on it? Oh, okay, I see. You draw the half-X cards still. Okay, that's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Alright, now opponent has Felia Leyline Binding. So if I do something cool, Felia just blinks Leyline Binding. Uro Caracas is now also a thing. Though I think my opponent probably just lets that one go to the graveyard and replays it from there. Edge Maze. Alright, Felia does the Felia thing. Seems fine to blink the Leyline Binding for the +1/+1 counter on Felia. And opponent does do that. So, like, my creature enters but doesn't do anything cool. And is just going to get taken away. So then Leyline Binding comes back and takes my owl. Alright. I have a fetch land for this Brainstorm. This Brainstorm can put back 2 of these legends, and then I tutor them back out later. We're not very exciting cards. I'll fetch to clear. Let's try to find something to do. I never get to break up Felia. I don't have removal, so Felia just exists forever. Alright, I use Endurance to try to ambush Felia, and then my opponent just Caracas bounces it. That doesn't work. Alright, let's shuffle. That's not doing it. Next plan. None of those cards do anything. That card does something next turn. So play PIR. Use that. Tutor up Toothy, which is probably just going to get pitched to a Force of Will when my opponent does something good. This feels so bad. So that's Uro coming back. If I don't counter it, I can never take it out of play. Other than Brazen Borrowers, which I think I boarded out because they're unexciting here. Felia can do the Leyline Binding trick again. My owl comes back. It doesn't matter. I take 3. Down to 11. And Leyline Binding takes the owl again. Here doesn't do anything with Scythecat Cub with Caracas in play here. There's Scythecat Cub, Misty, target a Noble Hierarch. Oh. I'm out of here, folks. This sucks. GG. Today's video is sponsored by moxfield.com. If you're looking to store your decks online, you're not going to find a better website. It's super organized and easy to use, and I sort everything that I do into a ton of format-specific folders, and you can customize the way that you use Moxfield to your liking. Whether you like text views or visual views of multiple different natures, Moxfield has it all. And it's so easy to use, you might even say that it's a snap. All right, my opening hand has no lands. Auto mulligan. Second hand has to get Tropical Island and is thus wastelandable. Hopefully that doesn't matter. I'm willing to keep this, and hopefully we just do landfall aggro nonsense that kills our opponent. Let's get Trop. Throw down a Hierarch. Underground Sea. Sure. That kind of changes things. I think I'm going to do this way. Opponent Force of Wills. I'll pass the turn. I'm going to wasteland them. Get out of here. I need more mana. Ooh, Ancient Tomb. Hey, more mana. There's 1 and 2 for Scythecat Cub. Misty. Counter here. Touch another Trop. Double the counters. Then Ponder. So I have 3 mana. I can copy a Scythecat Cub. That's not the best. I might just want another land more than any of these cards. Brazen Borrower is not bad. I'm assuming that my opponent is some blue-black show and tell pile. Maybe I can wild stock up number 5, question mark. I mean, I'll take it. This is not what I want. I want the damage right now, not the damage later. So this now taps for 2 mana. Means that I can play another Scythecat Cub. I get 5 damage in here. The next turn I, in theory, have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 damage. Alright, that helps. We'll just go 2 mana like this. Petty Theft you out of the way. Alright, that's good enough for a win there. GG. Here's the bad news. My opponent is a Tamiyo Barrogoyf deck, and I don't have removal spells. I need 4 Brazen Borrower and the Force of Wills to keep my opponent from resolving those creatures. And that's to say nothing of the combo side of the deck that I also have to respect as well. Mockingbird, copy a Tamiyo or Barrogoyf is also viable, right? This copies anything? Yeah, this copies anything. I think I'm getting rid of Jackal here. I'm kind of just very afraid of the stuff my opponent can do. Do I want Endurance as just something that can block Tamiyo, since I don't have removal? Let's say no. Also, there's Orcish Bowmasters to think about. Feels like another card that kind of solos my deck. Alright. I use turn 1 to Sculpt. I use turn 2 to Badgermole Cub. I don't really know where I'm going from there. Okay, now it's not turn 1 Sculpt. Now I accelerate, and Badgermole Cub becomes better. If I accelerate and my opponent just goes Surveil Land, Ancient Tomb, Show and Tell, though, I just die. Step 1. Oh, is it Fatal Push instead? Just Fatal Push instead. Sure. What is this? Great. Red thingy with Fire Breathing. Whenever you cast a spell during an opponent's turn, make another thingy. Neat. Alright. So I perhaps don't want to bounce that. So my opponent is blue-black Flash. I think I'm just going to Petty Theft this token out of the way and not let my opponent get the bonus mana from the Fire Breathing in the short term. Hope to hit another land drop to get immediate. Yeah, well, alright. I guess for that reason I do that in my opponent's upkeep. And my opponent has 2 more mana to sink into things. I guess this is why they think they can get away with playing things like Fact or Fiction, right? Uh-huh. So I have no permanent removal spells in my entire deck. I think we're just done here. My options for answering enchantments aren't great. Do I want to play Force of Vigor? I should say that specific enchantment that has an ETB attached to it. Brazen Borrower is not doing work there. I am way less into this Fluster. These now block 2/2 tokens. Go down 1 other early play. It feels like this does not get to 4 mana and just dies. I think I'll mulligan this. This is not good. I mean, I guess I'll keep it. I'll get rid of the Mockingbird. I am not doing the aggro of the name Simic Aggro here. That's additional mana. I guess, given that I want to wasteland my opponent, I am not excited about this. Also not excited about that. That means I can't wasteland effectively in this turn cycle. Maybe we just play the Owl in response to a fetch land, rather than playing out the Noble Hierarch like I intended. And opponent doesn't fetch. Daggers. I'm committed now. Maybe I can get away with, like, Brainstorm. Fuck, I'm not supposed to do this on their main. Would not get away with the Brainstorm. Yep, I have no removal in my deck. Kind of feels like I just lose to the Bowmasters here. Just outright. My deck doesn't function with a Bowmasters in play. And that's multiple basics. Yeah, this is a disaster. I'm at 17 when those triggers clear. I'll surveil. You're late. So I have to use a Brazen Borrower on that token and ambush this with Endurance. Ancient Tomb, sure. Alright, cool. The Bowmasters did come in. That gives me a chance. There's Endurance. I'm done here. The spirit is broken. Next round. GG. Alright. Opening hand is fine. Reet Wraith. The Doomsday or a Shadow deck. So if I want to try to copy this Noble Hierarch, I'm supposed to wait on this. I think I just don't do that. I think I just need to play it out immediately. And I think my mana pip requirements are going to be pretty heavy with Wan Shi Tong in hand. I don't think I'm going for the 2 basics here. Brainstorm is fine. On my next turn, I have this thingy, and then Mockingbird, copy Noble Hierarch, and then I have a ton of mana to start doing this stuff. See what my opponent has going on. Welp, they get a chance to break up whatever I'm doing. If they're combo, I might just lose Ponder. Alright, I lost Jackal. What am I doing here? I think I'm pondering. Force of Will seems important for if my opponent is combo. Nope. Badgermole Cub. That's fine. Another tropical island. Given the, frankly, crazy mana requirements of my hand. Badgermole Cub, effectively being a mana dork for 2 mana, matters a lot. Next turn I can also play Mockingbird on Badgermole Cub to turn my mana dorks into things that tap for 3. Right, there's a land drop after that Brainstorm. I have Orcish Bowmasters to worry about. Bowmasters is pretty good, but I guess my opponent would have pinged if they had it. I think let's go 1, 2, Mockingbird for 2 mana. Copy the Badgermole Cub. Earthbend that land. I have 6 mana here. I have to do all of this now. Oh, actually, I don't have... Despite having 6 mana, I don't have triple blue. Alright. Let's do the Owl around Days now to see if I hit a land drop. So triggers. I do hit a land drop. I'll play that out. Go to Punchies. Punchies for 3. And my opponent concedes. And I don't get confirmation of whether they are Doomsday or not. No days or no threat in 3 turns makes it maybe more likely that it's Doomsday. I might board for Doomsday and just have a bunch of bad cards if I'm wrong. Because I have a shit ton of things that stop Thassa's Oracle triggers in my deck. Like, I can get very good against Doomsday. Probably involves you going out, you going out. I really just want to play a flash game as much as possible. So that's probably you out, flash creatures in, 3 consigns in. Then I probably just play Brazen Borrower as yet another flash creature. I just want to hold up mana, do things on my opponent's turn as frequently as possible once I'm outside of the first couple of turns. So let's not One Ring. Go like Brazen Borrower, Fluster, 1/1 Ring for good luck. I think I'm actually going to do 1 Mockingbird. It pitches to Force of Will and copies my early creatures. Now, if this is just a Death Shadow deck, and my opponent had a clunker of an opening hand, it is what it is. But we're really, really, really hoping that they are Doomsday, given how I have chosen to board Verdant Catacombs. Sure. Hierarch is great. Let's grab a Trop and play that out. And my opponent will presumably surveil. There's a Daze. Still kind of ambiguous as to what my opponent is actually doing. Brainstorm happens. I think that's a Mr. Percy ear on camera. Scalding turn to clear. Ponder is fine. What's my next turn? My next turn is probably Scythecat Cub, land drop, hit ya. I think I'm still fine with that. My opponent dazes here and I wasteland them. They're back to land drops at the same time. And I would be good with that. Take out an Underground Sea. Opponent does have more land. There's a Street Wraith. Oh. Yep. Trigger there. Wasteland your Underground Sea again. Another Street Wraith. This might actually be Shadow. Could still be Doomsday. Opponent to 9. All pass here. Yes. And we win without full confirmation of what my opponent is doing. GG, I guess. Alright, my opening hand is fine. I could play the game on basics, depending on what we see on the other side of the battlefield. That is a Tamiyo that I cannot ever remove. Well, I will get my own Tamiyo, I guess. I think I'm going to go non-basics. Please resolve. Fuck. Alright. We lost. The game is over. We have lost to a turn 1 play, backed by a Daze. And it takes a while for that to happen, but I genuinely believe that I cannot win this game. I just do not have answers to Tamiyo. I'll fetch. I actually think I'm going to offer this up, my opponent's removal, in hopes of Scythecat Cub doing something cool. Alright, it resolved. Alright, so opponent is white. Says no to another Tamiyo. Tamiyo does the clue thing. There's another land drop. I have no removal in my deck. I don't beat this deck. Past Mockingbird. Have a Tamiyo and a Mockingbird. A 2/2 version of this. I think I've already just lost. If I get a decent sized threat, Aldra just has first strike, give my creature the middle finger. So the way to win would have to be have a flying creature, Scythecat Cub, copy Scythecat Cub, go for lethal in one go. I'm also missing a land drop here. Alright, here's the line. Ponder, I need either the third card down or the top card of library to be a colored land. If it isn't, I concede. Alright. Guess that answers the Cauldron Germ. Alright. How many game 1 Brazen Borrowers do I have? 2? 2. Also, why are we walking around with PIR and Toothy when I could just, like, play Tamiyo to trigger this? I guess Tamiyo being legendary doesn't work with that. My opponent now has 3 banked cards for later and a 3-turn clock off of this. Life is bad. Alright, there's another land drop. Of course it will. I need land drops. Okay. Bam, bam, bam. No shuffle. Fetch. I guess Mockingbird around Daze. So 0 was paid for this one. Copying Mockingbird. Not amazing. So this one is a Tamiyo. I cast this Ponder. I think I just need everything to go perfectly. So I'm looking for Cradle plus 1 ring. Okay. That's a different direction. I have unintentionally flipped my Tamiyo. Maybe that buys me. I thought this was changed. I thought this rule was changed so that copies of things could transform. Okay. I'm not 100% there, but I really thought a rule had changed there. Tamiyo gets the clue. There's now 4 of those stored. I will take 5. I guess technically I should block this in case Kaito is also a thing, now that I've seen black mana. Alright, looks like it is Planeswalker Tamiyo time. Alright. Blue token. Tamiyo pluses. Gaia's Cradle. 4 mana. The 1 ring. The 1 ring is played around Daze there. I get my extra turn. That's not what I'm looking for. Guess I can attack Tamiyo for 1. If Stoneforge Mystic wants to block, it doesn't. Oh, we also have Urza Saga to contend with over there now. Crack a clue. I have 1 ring protection unless you've got something cute there. Cameo plus is up to 5. Blue draws another card. So my opponent has 8 cards in hand. They have to discard. 1 ring deals me a damage. This is very relevant right now. Draw some more cards. So we're going to go 2 mana for Badgermole Cub. I copy Badgermole Cub. My opponent Force of Wills. Pitching Narcomoeba. Alright, so my opponent is on breakfast. That's not surprising. I think I'm just going to Force of Will. So I will Earthbend my Gaia's Cradle. After that, I will Earthbend this. Tap this for a whole bunch. There's a Scythecat Cub. Let's go blue mana. Let's Petty Theft this Germ out of play. Cool. Now I will go land drop, trigger here, fetch. I'm at 4. Land drop, trigger here, double the counters. This is 7. So this attacks and kills Tamio. Alright. This is what I got. I am riding the lightning here. I am just so very close to death. Alright, swords is bad. Because that was my fast way to just clock my opponent. Don't have anywhere close to lethal. I have a ton of mana. Let's see if I can do something stupid. This does give me more life again. So, draw cards. Yes. I think I'm going to go ahead and just tap this now. Blue mana might end up being a bottleneck. Do I have a basic forest I haven't done yet? I have a basic... okay. I have a basic forest I haven't used yet. Let's Scythecat Cub trigger on the Trampler. Fuck with PIR. I don't have lethal this turn. Let's not sweat that. Alright, basic forest. Counter there. This leaves me with 3 blue mana and a bunch of other mana. Earthbend a land. Now, I think this is the point where I will play PIR. Yes, use PIR to get Toothy. Tap this. There's Toothy. Use Toothy, get PIR. Now, use a blue mana. Cast this here Ponder. Brazen Borrower? Doesn't actually work all that well. I'm going to lose all of this floating mana. Let's shuffle this. Alright, always yield to that. Play a Hierarch. Go to Punchies. This 5 if I do this way. I think I'm willing to just trade a Badgermole Cub for an Urza Saga token to get a little more damage in. There's a very good chance that I just die to combo next turn as well. My opponent has a bunch of cards. I don't care about losing 1 Badgermole Cub. I imagine next turn I draw some cards with the 1 ring and my opponent dies. Opponent's at 10. Fetches. This is the sort of stuff that I want to be doing. But I have no removal, so it's so hard for me to get to the point where I actually do get to do this stuff. Opponent is floating mana. There's the Shuko. There's the Illusionist. So my opponent has a combo kill now. I have game 1 Endurance. Not have game 1 Endurance. And a few clicks later, we see the Dread return on Thassa's Oracle, which results in my death. GG. So I don't have removal spells. I kind of just lose to Stoneforge and Kaldra a huge portion of the time. I guess we have to play more Brazen Borrowers in respect of not losing to Kaldra. And then I can think about some number of these cards for the combo side of my opponent's deck, and this isn't crazy either. Feels like I'm just getting rid of this. I think I'm getting rid of Mockingbird. I trade out Wan Shitong for other flash creatures. Do I keep the Dirtle? It feels like PIR plus Scythecat Cub is a way to quickly close the game, even if Toothy is not amazing. Let's go like bam, bam, bam. That rounds things out okay. I could also just... Oh no, I get 2 more cards. Alright, that'll do. Just very not optimistic here. I guess this is fine. Multiple 1 rings is not really where I want to be in this matchup. They don't buy me time versus the combo. Basic planes, and I lose my mana dork. That's very bad for me. Let's brainstorm and get rid of one of these copies of the One Ring and hopefully play a Mana Dork as well. Nope. Alright, get rid of you. Get rid of you. Fetch to clear. Desperately need more mana. Nope. Kind of mana. Misty Rainforest. It's a Tameo. Again, I do not have answers to that card. My deck has just fucking failed me. I guess I'm playing the Hierarch here. Very, very mana inefficient. So Tameo gets to start acquiring clues. I really have to counter that. I wish I could keep the Tidebinder there for reasons like that. And Stoneforge? Okay, and Clue. Sure. Scythecat Cub with no creature is what I'm doing. So I do that in hopes of playing PIR, drawing a land next turn, and putting a bunch of counters on Scythecat Cub. That's the dream. Already dead if my opponent has the combo pieces in hand. Get buried in clues even if they don't have the combo. Black mana now available. That is not the land drop I'm looking for. Just dead. My hand failed to function. Can't even attack with Scythecat Cub, because there's a clue that contributes to the Urza Saga count. Alright, resolves. I will pick up a Toothy, but I have to pass my turn there. These Urza Saga tokens are going to be surprisingly big. Even if my opponent doesn't combo, there's a good chance that I can just lose to those tokens, right? So this is 2-2, into 3-3, into 4-4, into 5-5 next turn already. And every turn, Tameo makes them one bigger. Alright, Urza Saga to 3 is Robot O'Clock. There's Shuko, land drop, combo kill is available. No to the combo kill, not immediately. Tameo will make the construct one bigger. Well, Magic Online has unexpectedly gone down. Something has gone wrong with their servers. I've been waiting for 10 minutes to kind of get back in, and Magic Online is dead. So this is the end of this round. We'll come back for round 5 after I take a break, eat some lunch, and try to let Magic Online get its life back together. GG's. I am very sure we weren't winning that one. Alright. I will keep this opening hand here. This has the potential to be pretty explosive. We're probably playing against a Tameo Barrow-Goyf deck, and I don't have removal. So that's not great. I think I'm going to go ahead and just play this immediately as a land so that I can potentially use Scythecat Cub counters multiple ways. Or rather, I can potentially use multiple fetch lands later on. I might just do Badgermole Cub on turn 2. I don't want to see Bowmasters. I also don't want to see that. Okay. I think I'm going to go Cub. I guess I can't say that. I think I'm going to go Badgermole Cub into Scythecat Cub on my turn rather than Scythecat Cub with counters immediately. And we're just under the gun from Tameo immediately. So let's get a Trop. Badgermole Cub. Earthbend the Trop. This could technically attack the Tameo for 1, but I think it is just much better to play another creature. I need to feed something to Daze at some point, and I need to bait Force of Will. I have some very good endgame haymakers in hand. I have to just get to the point where they are playable. I still have an attack for 3 with Badgermole Cub in the next turn cycle, so this is fine. I would love to have the Scythecat Cub in play because it's good with PIR, but such is life. That is a fatal push. That really slows me down. Tameo pluses to a whopping 6 already. Both of these are base 1/1s that died at Bowmasters. Alright. I think I am playing PIR. I will do so around a Daze. And then I will attack in with this for 2 at Tameo. Alright, so let's go ahead and tutor up our other Toothy. Send at Tameo. Creature gets smaller, creature gets bigger. We only end up taking 1 counter off of Tameo, unfortunately. My position is not great. I can only take 1 counter off of Tameo per turn. And at some point, opponent can just Tameo minus, like, fetch, fatal push, Barrow-Goyf, and the game's kind of over. Alright, Tameo to 7. Land drop. That's a disaster. So my opponent chump blocks and then ultimates Tameo. I don't see a way out from there. Like, I can play a Toothy, it doesn't do anything immediately. The thing that I put Badgermole Cub Counters onto can have one extra counter. I don't think that's relevant. Yeah, I think I just died to turn 1 Tamiyo for not having removal for it. GG. My boarding options are just not good. Like, I want to answer Tamiyo and Bowmasters, and my answer to them is kill them in combat or don't. I think I'm just fully off of this creature at this point. It is awkward to use, and it also dies to Bowmasters in this specific matchup. I'm going to turn those into 2 copies of Endurance, and maybe this is the only way that we beat the Tamiyos. Like, let them have it, have them plus, and flash this in and shut off the ability. I'm just so bottlenecked on mana so much of the time. I am unhappy piloting this deck. This is brutal. This hand does nothing. I mean, after the mulligan, I'll keep this, but this is not what I want an opening hand to look like. I have to surveil land, which means using this immediately, which means that I'm not saving this to do cool things with it. Rough. There goes my inevitability. Oh, I did not lose the inevitability. I think that's actually scarier. That means my opponent is just like, no, you can keep the One Ring. I've got that covered already. Edge Maze. I will keep the extra land. I think my deck is mana hungry enough that I just don't waste land. I think I want to play Scythecat Cub, have the ability to pollute a Delta fetch, and be attacking for 4 next turn. In play, but it did sit on the stack for a little while. Under it is. Alright, there's a fetch land afterwards. Clear. And I lose Scythecat Cub. That's a pretty big blow. Alright. Operation Dirtle begins. Get drop. I kind of think my opponent has a Daze or Force. That said, I don't really know that I can not cast my spells. Alright, resolves. At least get a cantrip out of this. Grab Toothy. Opponent cantrips again. Plays in Undercity Sewers to get rid of some card they don't like. They don't want Thoughtseize. Okay, that makes more sense. I'm going to say, like, my One Ring is how I get back into this game. So there's Toothy. Right, there's the Force of Will I suspected from earlier. So now I'm just on nothing. I have a PIR which does not do anything on its own. So no One Ring. I think my opponent's about to play a giant Murktide Regent. And again, I can never answer this creature permanently. Just going to be a land drop. Honestly, I think I don't wasteland my opponent. I think I want to be able to play the One Ring and play a card afterwards. Kills me so quickly. I will take 8. Percy is requesting that I open the window. I have drawn a Noble Hierarch. Excellent. Gaia's Cradle. Send in for 1 with Exalted. Opponent is at 11. At this point, I guess I'll wasteland. I already have some mana after a One Ring. Keeps my opponent off of Hardcast Force of Negation, I guess. That's a land. We are just actually factually dead. The scoreboard here gave me a win for the disconnect match as everyone went off on Magic Online, but that's a 1-4 league. So let's wrap this up and see what we can do to fix this deck. Overall thoughts on this deck list. It's trying to do too many things, and it's also incredibly mana inefficient. Despite the fact that you have some Mana Dorks and Badgermole Cub, this deck just wants to do too many things with its mana. On top of that, I think it's also very bad at triggering this card. You're fine if you have a Noble Hierarch, because Noble Hierarch either triggers it on cast, or you play Noble Hierarch, attack with this. It's now a 2-power thing, and then you can copy your Scythecat Cub or Badgermole Cub. But as soon as your opponent starts interacting with you, your plan falls apart. Like, when you lose Badgermole Cub, you sometimes lose 2 mana. When you lose the Scythecat Cub, all your aggression stops. And you just don't have a way to make it to your end game. Again, there's no removal here. So if you want to play something that looks like this, I think you just have to add a playset of some removal spell at an absolute minimum. Again, the previous PIR Toothy One Ring deck that I was playing had 8 1-mana removal spells, if you count Leyline Binding as a 1-mana removal spell. And that felt pretty smooth. That was able to relatively consistently make it to the end game. whereas this doesn't. I feel like there's two decks being shoved together here. I feel like deck number one is this like highly efficient, low to the ground deck trying to copy Badgermole Cub and Scythecat Cub. And deck number two is a one ring PIR and Toothy control deck that also plays stuff that looks like this. And I think you need to fully separate these ideas. So if you want to do this stuff, I think you need something along the order of 8 removal spells. You can probably get away with 6, depending on what they are. And if you're trying to do this, I think your curve needs to stop at 3. I think if you're trying to do this, I would be bug. Then it's not crazy to run more 1-drop creatures. Like maybe you run 6. You have like 4 Noble Hierarchs, 2 Ignoble Hierarchs, or 3-3 split, depending on what exactly the rest of the mana base looks like. You get 4 Fatal Pushes in there. You top the curve with Barrow Ghost because that card is stupid. You can maybe keep Brazen Borrower. Casting Brazen Borrower and copying it and getting 6 flying power after bouncing an opposing threat is not all that bad. But I think the expensive pile of cards here didn't work with this side of the deck, and I'm going to count this in with the expensive side of things. And the 6 legendary creatures don't work well with... Ooh, the copy is not legendary. I guess that never came up. So I guess if the copies aren't legendary, having multiple peers at the same time is kind of neat. The deck also folds to Karakas, with like most of your threat suite being legend, 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 legend. That was a problem. There's also the question of like, if I am a blue deck, why am I not playing Tamiyo? Actually, non-legendary Tamiyo kind of fucks, right? Have 2 different clue machines going at the same time. That's actually more interesting than anything else here. So Skylar, hopefully that gives you some good food for thought. We got absolutely bodied today. And if we use this wrap-up point as a time to talk about Legacy, when I think about current Legacy, Tamiyo is one of the most format-defining cards at this point. Barrow Goyf is lower on the list, but it's slightly below that. And when I think about things at the top of the metagame, I'm thinking about Izzet Tempo decks and Dimir Tempo decks. And there's just creatures everywhere. So unless your deck goldfishes extremely quickly, which this deck does not do, you have to be playing a lot of removal, and you have to be prepared to answer Tamiyo and stop other threats. And I think this deck was just not prepared to do that, at least not efficiently. Tishana's Tidebinder out of the sideboard is something that could address the Tamiyo Planeswalker side, but at that point, we're using a 3-mana card to try to stop a 1-mana card that my opponent has probably gotten 3 spells worth of value out of by the time that I get that down and resolve that. So I don't think that's fantastic. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and call it a day. Have a great rest of the day, folks. See ya!